Welcome back. It is your Feel Good Breakfast show. It's a Friday morning, and thanks so much for starting the day off with us. Now, last week, we chatted about a lab-grown lung that was planted into a pig, and it works perfectly. And one might think like, okay, that's weird enough. But right now, we're talking about things in technology that will blow your mind. Completely bizarre. Scientists are experimenting with something called CRISPR. And they're doing this in the United States that might allow us to one day be able to genetically make babies exactly the way that we want them to be made, which is very, very scary.
I can't believe it.
Are we there already in that kind of world?
Yeah.
Dennis Jansen van den Berg joining us to talk about that.
Dennis, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Please tell us, you have to get straight into it. What is this CRISPR?
Right, so CRISPR is essentially a gene editing tool. It was basically thought of as how our actual DNA learns over time what diseases to have an immunity to, and just from that kind of same mechanism, that's where CRISPR comes from. So essentially, CRISPR can split your genome in half and insert the other piece that would stop a disease from happening again if you've had a cold or a flu or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So that's where the technology comes from, and now they're using it in obviously much different ways.
Yeah, but let's quickly try and understand first, what is it that scientists are doing with human embryos, and what is it that they're trying to achieve?
Right, so it's a new study that came out in 2017, and now it's being kind of ridiculed and it's going back and forth. But essentially they created human embryos, and they used this technology to cut out a mutation in the genome. So
Yes.
there's a specific type of gene that especially athletes suffer from, and is basically a heart condition that is passed on from the mother and the father.
Mm-hmm.
So they inserted this mutation into an embryo, and then they use CRISPR to try to remove that. And that's where they want to go with CRISPR, is removing genetic mutations.
Yeah.
Cancer genes, all of those kind of diseases is what they want to cut out with CRISPR.
This is wild. This is absolutely wild. I mean, obviously something like this would be hugely controversial. The science community has not taken all too well to this. What are some of the results they found that everyone is just thinking is ridiculous rather?
Yeah, so the reason it's controversial is because they are doing these experiments with human embryos.
Yeah.
So it is illegal in the US to harvest an embryo and do the test from them, so they have to fertilize the eggs themselves. And that's why people are not too happy with it. But the results from it is very promising. So they were able to cut out those mutations in the genes, and people are questioning whether we should go forward with this, because it is actually working.
Yeah.
And as you rightly say, that means in a decade's time you can potentially choose the color of your baby's eyes and their hair, and should they be muscular or not, and all these kind of things will start happening with CRISPR over time.
Yeah. So I guess the big question is, I mean, you just said now in a decade's time, do you think that we'll see this in our lifetime where you can basically have a designer baby? And I mean, there's a potential that the poverty gap or the wealth gap will get even bigger, because the richer will get richer, the poorer will get poorer. If you can afford to make sure that your child has a certain percentile of IQ and is capable in certain ways that will advance them in the world, others can't do that.
Yeah.
Are we going to see that in our lifetime?
I think so. I mean, the biggest stumbling block isn't the technology, it's the morals and the ethics around it, and how people are going to have that pushback. I do think, though, at the end of the day, we're going to use it first to get rid of those mutated genes, get rid of the diseases, and then you might have the super rich people that put blue eyes in their kids that just look strange, that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, I think we all just need to start being more spatially aware. Look around you, the world is changing at quite a rapid rate, man.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dennis, always for coming around with your expertise and your insights. And let us know which stories you've been following from the world of technology around. When you do share them with us, please use #ExpressoShow.